President Trump defended Pete Hegseth during an interview about a week or two ago, and I played parts of this story, in recent weeks as we talked about this, but I wanted to make sure I got to this. President Trump did a very good job during his sit-down interview with Kristen Welker. I think she's with NBC or MSNBC, NBC, and he defended Pete Hegseth because this is important, all right? Matt Gaetz' nomination failed. Pam Bondi's now the Attorney General nominee. Pete Hegseth, they've just been going after him. I mean, they've just been trying to basically Kavanaugh Pete Hegseth before he even gets a hearing. And it's been very unfair. A lot of these accusations are completely unfounded. Pete Hegseth, we played his comments about his testimony and about how God changed his life. He's not the man that he once was. So all of that being said, I just want to commend President Trump for defending his defense secretary nominee. Let's listen to President Trump on Pete Hegseth.
It looks like Pete is doing well now. I mean, people were a little bit concerned. He's a young guy with a tremendous track record, actually. Went to Princeton and went to Harvard. He was a good student at both, but he loves the military, and I think people are starting to see it. So we'll be working on his nomination along with a lot of others.
Since you bring him up, do you still have confidence in Pete Hegseth?
Yes, I do. I really do. He's a very smart guy. I've known him through Fox, but I've known him for a long time. And he's basically a military guy. I mean, every time I talk to him, all he wants to talk about is the military. He's a military guy.
Well, there you have it. That's President Trump defending Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth made the comments the other day about how the military needs to be restored to being operated based on merit and based on lethality. And that's one thing that's been lost in our Pentagon. The Pentagon's so not focused, and they're trying to nation build. They're trying to run diplomacy. They're trying to do all these things that they're not set out to do. That's not their primary focus. I mean, the military is there to defend the homeland and win wars. And we've gotten totally sidetracked over the last several decades to where the Pentagon's doing everything but winning wars. And they don't even know what it's like. They don't even know what it tastes like to win a war anymore because we've been too busy trying to nation build. And, if you want to look at an example of this, look at the deployment when Biden tried to send, when he did send that, I think it was a Navy unit. It possibly could have been an Army unit, but he sent them over to Gaza with that floating pier unit with multiple ships, and he sent them over to Gaza to do what's a pretty rudimentary military operation, and that is to deploy a floating pier off the coast of Gaza so that foreign aid could be deployed into the Gaza Strip, and so that Israel could get some of the heat off their back when it comes to this aid coming into Gaza. That kind of got overlooked, but that turned out to be an epic disaster. It turned out to be an epic disaster where the pier was falling apart. Actually, multiple service members were severely injured in that operation, and it was an epic failure on all fronts. I think there were only like a small fraction of aid that was able to get into there, but that was an embarrassment. And who was held accountable for that? I don't know anybody. I don't even know if they had any hearings about that. But we couldn't deploy. Our military couldn't deploy a floating pier unit in a relatively calm area in the Mediterranean without a disaster ensuing. And there were many analysts that were talking about, like, if we were having to deploy into the South China Sea in a spat over Taiwan with China, and we're trying to deploy these floating pier units, well, we can't even do that because that would be in an actual war zone. And so that was just one example, and then the Afghanistan withdrawal is another example of unmitigated failure. And who was held accountable for that Afghanistan withdrawal fiasco? Because we left how many $1 billion worth of military equipment in Afghanistan that the Taliban's now driving around, including armored vehicles and weapons? Like what? This is stuff we've got to get answers for, Bobby. And there's almost so much stuff that we have to get answers for that we're going to spend like the first 6 months of the Trump administration just uncovering previous scandals.
He's going to have a really busy first day, but that's the debacle in Afghanistan, with the loss of all that life and equipment to the tune of $85 billion.
Yeah. Yeah, who does that?
Who gets to the bottom of that?
Yeah, and reportedly Mark Milley, the general, said, "Oh, well, it'll cost more to get the equipment out than it will to keep it in." Well,
yeah, right.
We should have thought about that. Like this is stuff that should have been thought about.
Yeah, they don't have logistics planners for that, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah,
how they get it in
they're
there?
supposed to specialize in that. Yeah. But we get into these wars and then we get halfway through them and everybody's looking around like, what are we doing here? And then that's how you end up with the Afghanistan fiasco, where you leave $85 billion in military equipment to our foreign adversary. And at the end of the day, we went into Afghanistan with the Taliban in control, and then we leave and the Taliban's in control. It's like, what on this earth are we doing? That in and of itself is a scandal. And so my point is that Pete Hegseth is the guy for the job. I mean, he's absolutely the guy for the job. We got to be focused on winning wars and defeating our enemies. That's it. That's you literally have one job, and that's to win wars and defend the homeland. That's your sole job. Let's get it done. And next time you're called on to deploy a relatively rudimentary operation of deploying a floating pier in the Mediterranean, let's do it, and let's do it well. But they didn't, and nobody was held accountable for that. And China was probably laughing at that because now they know that we're not ready for the South China Sea. We're not ready to defend Taiwan because we can't do it in the Mediterranean in partnership with Israel. All right, folks, it's At the Core. We'll be back in a few minutes. Special guests coming up. You won't want to miss it. We'll be back in a few.
For you formed my inward parts. You knitted me together in my mother's womb. My name is Abraham Hamilton III, and this is the Hamilton Minute. According to a recent study published by the Christian Post, 76.3% of all abortions are obtained by, quote, God-fearing women, unquote, with 68.7% who identify themselves as Christian women and 18% of all abortions obtained by self-described born-again or evangelical women. A corresponding CareNet study found that many women with unplanned pregnancies go silently from the church pew to the abortion clinic, convinced the church would gossip rather than help. America's greatest need is repentance. When the hearts of the American people turn to God, everything else will be impacted.
Listen each weekday from 5 to 6 p.m. Central for the Hamilton Corner with Abraham Hamilton III, public policy analyst for the American Family Association. As the world is changing around us, the ministry of AFA is staying anchored in God. If the Lord has gifted you to be a giver, we ask that you remember AFA in your year-end giving. As a good steward, you know the tax advantages of year-end giving. There's a variety of options for giving, ranging from cash gifts to stock donation to real estate. Some of the more creative gifts have earlier tax deadlines, so why not contact a representative of the AFA Foundation today to discuss your year-end gift? They can help you set up your donation now and make it effective by the proper date. Call 800-326-4543, extension 345. That's 800-326-4543, extension 345. Your support is key to our ministry in Jesus' name. Beat the rush by calling now, 800-326-4543, extension 345.
Hello, everyone. Tim Wildman here with American Family Association and American Family Radio. Hey, in 2025, we have a brand new tour available. It's in October, and it's going to Boston. What a wonderful trip this will be to see one of the most significant cities in all of American history. Boston, Lexington, Concord, and the whole story of the Freedom Trail. It's going to be absolutely wonderful. And that's in October of 2025. So we also have the tours of Washington, D.C. and Mount Vernon, and then the Colonial Williamsburg, Jamestown, and Yorktown tours as well. So that's coming up in 2025. If you want to read about any of these, go to wildmangroup.com, WILDMON group.com, wildmangroup.com, for all the information on Boston, D.C., and Williamsburg. Hope to see you on one of these in 2025.
At the Core podcasts are available at AFR.net. Now, back to At the Core on American Family Radio.
Welcome back to the Core. Well, there's so many scandals that have happened under Biden that I even forget to rattle them all off. But during the break, Bobby reminded me that Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin went MIA for like a week in the hospital, and some of that time he was actually unconscious. He was not able to perform his duties fully, and Biden didn't find out about it till after the fact, and the public found out about it through a leak with the media. So that in and of itself was a scandal that should have been worthy of being removed from office, because his team should have disclosed that to the president. You would think the commander-in-chief.
Right, and his undersecretary couldn't even cover for him.
No. Yeah.
Totally dropped the ball on him.
Yeah, she was on vacation, by the way. She was in
good plan.
Yeah, she was in the
Jamaica,
Bahamas.
The Bahamas?
Yeah, she was in the Bahamas. Moving on to our next guest, not representative, but Michael Hurst. He is the chairman of the Mississippi Republican Party. He's also a former U.S. attorney who served under the Trump administration. He's with us now to talk about the latest in conservatism in Mississippi and nationally.